Yes.
Still waiting on Carla?
Do we have John Parks?
It's Carla.
Here.
Okay, I'll call the open session of the school committee to order. We will start with, again tonight, I apologize for the lengthier executive session. We'll start the open meeting now with public input. Again, we will read that at the end of the meeting, but you can send email to D as in David, G as in Gary, school committee at reading.k12.ma.us, and we'll address those at the end of the meeting. If you have a question during one of the presentations, you can send an email to that same address, and we'll answer those as we're in those sections. For tonight, we'll have consent agenda, reports, and then we'll have a approval of the intermunicipal agreement, a budget discussion as a follow-up from the FinCom meeting Tuesday night, and then a discussion and vote on the social media policy and guidelines. So having said that, as I said, public input is open, and do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Is there a second?
Second, this is Sean.
Is there any questions, or anyone wants anything taken out of the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Roll call. Aaron?
Aye.
Carla?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Chuck? Aye. And so now we'll have reports. As always, first is Maura Drummy, and before you give your report, I'd like to say that this is Maura's last night on the school committee, I believe, and I really, really have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy your progress and everything. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
You've done
much.
a great job.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I just want to say I was nervous my first time ever coming to school committee. I remember being scared to talk in front of everybody, but everyone here welcomed me with open arms, and I've learned so much about the school system. And I know you guys care so much, and the school's left in great hands. It's been an honor to be able to watch these meetings to speak. So thank you for the care you put into this town, and I'm going to continue watching. I'll be at my house watching RCTV.
And pull paper someday.
I know, might just have to run. So today my report has two parts. I'm going to talk about some academics and then as well as some student activities. So in terms of the academics, this week and next week, students are taking AP exams. So a lot of juniors and seniors have been studying for those in their free time. And teachers have also, many, provided office hours where you could ask questions about the exams. This is through Teams. So that is one thing that's been going on lately. They're online, which is different than the usual 3-hour in-person exam. So it's good that we had time to kind of get acquainted with the technology. They had a practice review. And luckily, most seniors said that ran pretty smooth, and hopefully we'll be able to get some college credit for those. Additionally, as you all know, the remote learning with the new phase. There's a new interactive opportunity. So from the student perspective, on Monday, we received all of our assignments via Google Classroom, along with the dates of all the virtual opportunities for the meetings. So unfortunately, due to AP exams for juniors and seniors, it was a little difficult trying to go to those, but I went to one yesterday for my today for my World War II class, and it was great being able to see everyone in person. It kind of brought a sense of normalcy during this time, and my World War II teacher was telling us stories about World War II, which was just an experience that we wouldn't have been able to have if it was just, you know, a reading or a PDF. So I definitely appreciated being able to see everyone. Now, in terms of the senior activities and student activities, we have the drama club. Their spring show was supposed to be Peter and the Starcatcher. Obviously, unfortunately, they won't be able to perform that. But what they did was, in order to have some sort of closure with their show and say goodbye, they had a interactive meeting online where they ran through the script and they videotaped it so they could say goodbye in the proper way and see everybody in the club. And now, additionally, I've been telling you all over the last couple weeks about senior activities and events, and a lot of them finally are happening and are happening next week as well. So I told you all about the t-shirts. So these are the shirts right here. I don't know if you can see them, maybe it's backwards, but it says 2020 seniors. Of course, we have a bagel on there for Bagel World, you already know. And so what happened was we had teachers and administration and class officers and parents delivering these shirts to students, along with these cookies that say seniors 2020 RMHS. So those went to all the seniors, and it was fun being able to see everyone submit their photos themselves with their shirts on and eating their cookies, and it kind of was an interactive way to bring senior cheer. Additionally, the virtual prom also happened. That was on May 9th, and just being honest, we weren't sure how this would go, how many people would sign up for it and do it, because, you know, it's not the same thing as real prom. But we were so excited when we had a large number of students participating in this. They watched the DJ live stream, and then on their own, they Zoomed with friends, and a lot of them joined. We had an RMHS Zoom with just RMHS students, so we had a lot of people on there. It was great seeing everyone and the pictures of that. So if you want to check out the pictures from the virtual prom, follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram is Class 2020 RMHS, and then on the Instagram, you can also see the countdown every day for the last 2 weeks, starting from May 11th to 22nd, our last day. People have been posting countdown posters with RMHS and Reading references and just kind of childhood throwbacks. So if you want to see all the senior activities and updates and all those photos, definitely check out our Instagram. So next week's virtual senior week, so hopefully we're working on that and we're excited for that. And just ways to bring senior cheer during this time, because our class will definitely not be forgotten. Thank you.
So Mara, I'm just being nosy. Can you share your plans for next year?
Yeah, so next year I'm going to go to Boston College. Right now my major's undecided. Thank you so much. Yeah, my major's undecided, but I'm interested down the line and maybe law or teaching or something along those lines. But hopefully I'll be back in the fall.
That's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So with the administration reports, Dr. Doherty's going to lead that. There's a presentation, and I'd also like to mention that Principal Boynton is with us tonight as well to talk further about the senior activities and such. And correct, Dr. Doherty?
That is correct. I'm actually going to have Kate go first. So I hope everyone can see the slide. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate Boynton, our high school principal.
Hey, welcome, Kate. She on mute?
I don't know.
Here I am. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I turned my camera on so you can see, hopefully, my picture down the bottom. First, I I really want to give a shout out to Maura. Maura, it was great to see you present. I've seen you present at other school committee meetings, but this is the first one I've seen you virtually present at. I watched a couple of other recordings, but not live. You've done such an amazing job. And I am also a BC grad from grad school. So congratulations on becoming an Eagle. That's so exciting. I want to give it's really exciting. I'm kind of a BC family. So my sister went there and I have a cousin who went there. So it's pretty cool. I want to give a shout out to the senior class advisors and all of the officers. I apologize for some of the noise. My husband is on a Zoom call in the other room. So he started it. So sorry about that. So a shout out to the class advisors, the class officers, the senior class parents. They have just been amazing in their support and wraparound and in partnering with me to support our senior class. And I think that we've just done an amazing job, and our students have really risen to this challenge. And a lot of that is in large part due to the leadership of our senior class officers. And so a huge shout out to them with the support of the advisors. So a couple of things, and I think, you know, Maura, I'm just kind of following on your coattails, my friend, because I think you've talked a lot about this. But just to give a little bit of a rundown of some of the things that we've done. Parents rallied to do the 01867 license plates and order those for their seniors. We have the door decorations that really went viral, and they were amazing. And we had a senior parent who compiled all of the door decorations into a single video that really, when you watched it, I showed it in my newsletter last week, there was not a dry eye in any place. The video was beautiful, and the door decorations were really tremendous. I hope that that becomes a new tradition, actually, moving forward, because it was really cool. The seniors, along with North Reading seniors, were featured in the Readings magazine. We partnered with O'Connor Studios to be able to get senior photos to share in a feature along with some candid photos. And so that was just a special edition, and it came out really, really well. We have the lawn signs that we had a number of staff members deliver personally to people's homes in support of our seniors. As Maura mentioned, we have the t-shirts. So I'm going to show you mine, which is awesome. Which I got, so that the t-shirt deliveries were truly a special experience, because I had about 25 staff members along with myself. We drove to Allie Tompkins' house. Marianne graciously agreed to kind of have everything there. They bagged everything, the t-shirts along with a little message. We were all given addresses. Seniors and their families were told when the deliveries were going to happen. We sort of did a rolling, you know, with our masks, and drove up, got our bag, and then we went on the deliveries in a socially distanced way. And a lot of the kiddos came out on their doorsteps and waved, and were just like, it was really amazing. A great sense of community, and just a super positive event. Early on during the school closure, staff did a video, not specifically for the seniors, but I think the global message was for all students, and that was a really fun endeavor and a community building, a community building activity. Ms. Terrio, assistant principal, returned from her medical leave, and so there's been some messaging kind of throughout this from both she and I. We had, as Maura mentioned, the virtual prom that was really well attended, and I think some staff members also attended and showed pictures, and the kids were really excited to have some staff members attend. The senior countdown, the digital countdown, as Maura mentioned, and so you can see that on their Instagram page. Those are getting approved through Ms. Terrio and myself, but they've been super creative and really fun to see. The seniors did an amazing job planning their Spirit Week senior activities. So Maura, do you want to talk a little bit more about each of those 5 days? I'm not sure if you've shared that yet at school committee, but there's like Jungle Day, and there's really fun interactive things virtually. There's like a quiz bowl. They're going to do a lip dub. Did I miss anything, Maura?
Yeah, we're also going to have a virtual senior destination map. So what we did was, through Google Earth, compiled all of the next steps of students where they're going, whether that's trade school, college, military, entering the workforce. and we put this into one Google Earth, and it's interactive. So you can explore all around, click on the different colleges and schools, see where people's names are. We're also going to take Mr. RMHS and we're going to live stream it, and we're going to so people have that available on our Mr. RMHS YouTube channel, because people put so much hard work into all of their acts. So now that will finally come into fruition. You can be able to watch that. We're going to have the slideshow and the superlatives available to watch. We're also going to have a scavenger hunt around Reading where we hide the words, the letter senior in places so people can drive by, and whoever's first to see all the letters and DM them to our account will win a prize. We're going to have like an online trivia with high school trivia. So yeah, there's a lot of things in the works. Every day of next week, there's going to be fun virtual interactive activity. And then like Ms. Boynton said, different themes that you can dress up on and submit photos of you dressed up and for a chance to win a prize. So just a way to get people involved and, have some of those traditions, even if it's at home.
Yeah, just really fantastic and so creative. One of the most special initiatives was Adopt a Senior, and that went out community-wide, and so members of the community adopted members of the senior class, teachers adopted members of the senior class, finding a little something about each senior that was unique and special interests, and then sending them a little gift package or something like that, which was really fun. Our big event coming up is next Saturday, and that is the Rolling Rally Parade that's going to start at Jordan's parking lot with parents driving one car per senior. We've got some details coming out from myself, Dr. Doherty, and Reading Police about sort of security precautions and things like that. But essentially, parents or seniors will gather a single car. They'll have to have a ticket on the dashboard. They'll gather at Jordan's parking lot beginning at about 9:15. The rally will kick off at about 10 o'clock sharp, and then proceed from Jordan's up Main Street, and then taking a left on Birch Meadow, and then a left onto Oakland Drive, Oakland Road, and then proceeding into the high school parking lot. And we'll have staff who are interested in coming be on the grounds of the high school to cheer our seniors on. Seniors are encouraged to decorate their cars ahead of time before getting into before coming to the Jordan's parking lot. We're really excited about this event. So that'll be sort of culminating the end of the school year for seniors, because their last day officially is the 22nd. So the parade will be on the 23rd. We are still in the planning stages of a couple more events. First, cap and gown distribution. We're not quite sure yet. The plans have not been finalized. We're waiting on the cap and gown shipment. I just got word today that should be shipping out in the next couple of days. So that's very exciting news that caps and gowns will be here soon. We're still looking towards graduation, and we're looking at several different options and contingency plans that are somewhat potentially in person if we're allowed, virtual, hybrid of them. We're still waiting to get guidance from the state, hopefully next week, about the reopening plan, and then we'll plan accordingly for graduation. But we have a number of different contingency plans in the works. We are working on plans for some sort of virtual awards night. And then we're also working on a plan for a later in-person celebration. They're calling it the Year Zero reunion. And sometime in the fall or winter, when we're allowed to gather in large groups again, sort of waiting for that to happen. But the students, myself, Ms. Terrio, and the class advisors have been meeting with the officers fairly frequently, and they felt it was really important to have the ability to come back together and celebrate as a group in person when they're allowed to. So I think that about wraps up the things that we've done for seniors. One of the things that I want to share that the seniors have done for the town and for the school system is the senior gift, which I believe is truly, truly one of the most special gifts that a senior class could give to this town, and that is the seniors, all the seniors who wanted to read children's stories, recorded them, and then shared them to a Google Doc and allowed, which was distributed to all elementary teachers, and they could use those with their classrooms. And in those videos, they read or they shared what school they went to, what elementary school they went to, and one of their favorite memories of elementary school before they read the story. So it was really such a special thing. And that, I think, wraps up. Maura, did I forget anything?
I don't think so. I think that's it for now, unless we come up with anything else.
No, that's fantastic. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Kate. That was a great presentation and update. One thing I was thinking is I mean, this truly is a special class, and I mean, we can talk about it later, I guess, but I think it'd be a nice gesture to take, if you have an extra one of those jerseys that Maura had on, and we'll get it framed and maybe hang it up somewhere on Main Street just to remember this special class.
I love that idea.
So. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Robinson, I am going to move on. Jen Stice is going to do a student services update.
Hello,
Hey, Jen.
everybody. Good evening. Maura, I have to say, all year it has been so difficult to go after your amazing updates, and I feel like this was the crescendo of you and Principal Boynton talking about how amazing your class is. So I just wanted to say thank you and congratulate you. And it really has been an honor to go after all of your wonderful updates all year. And that really speaks to, something I say to you all the time, how dedicated the staff and the families are in Reading to making sure we are doing what's right for our students and families, and the staff works very hard on that. And one of the things that I just want to acknowledge is the really good working relationship we've developed with the CPAC. We meet with them every Friday, and it's a great opportunity for them to tell us the things that are working, the things that they have questions about or concerns with, and I really value that time and that feedback, and I hope they do as well. And one of the things that had come out of there that still seems to be an issue that I wanted to clarify was the description of office hours. So that's a term the state used, and we used it in conjunction with the state because we felt it was important that we were consistent. But I do want families to know that that is absolutely a time for students to get instruction. If they need further clarification, if families would like to check in to have another exposure to a lesson or to ask questions, that is absolutely a time for that. And so we wanted to make sure we clarified that. The other piece that we wanted to clarify is the ESY, an extended school year. The state has advised us to plan for 3 different options. One is in person, one is remote, and one is a combination of both of those. And we are not sure at this point what it is going to be, nor do we get to make the choice. The governor and the state will let us know which model or combination of models we will be using. So we've been engaging in all of that planning, and if students have extended school year services in their IEPs, they will be receiving them, whether it be in person or remotely, and we just wanted to assure families of that. And if anybody has any questions, the team chairs are really working very hard to make sure we are in communication with families and answering questions and supporting them. So please feel free to reach out to the team chairs and or Allison Wright, who is an amazing assistant student support specialist. And I are doing office hours with families, so that is another avenue if people have questions or concerns. The last thing we wanted to update you all on is the more information we get from the state and everybody's professional agencies. We are trying to adapt and make sure that we are staying up with the latest information. And so for speech and language pathologists, their professional organization is called ASHA, and ASHA and the Massachusetts group of speech and language pathologists have required that any telecommunication via the computer, and even if it's just a check-in, that speech and language pathologists need to have a waiver on file to provide that service. So we have worked with all the related service providers because we felt like if that's best practice for one group, it's best practice also for the OTs, the PTs, and counseling. And we're going to be sending that waiver out to families. It does not change the services students are getting. It just really says, you know, that there are could be difficulties with connectivity, and there are issues with privacy, which we've reviewed with families, and we have that waiver when we do send out emails to set up times. And we just want people to know it's coming. They can reach out with any questions or concerns, but it's really a compliance issue that their organizations are requiring to make sure we've notified families of all of the components of doing telecommunications. So that will be coming out shortly, and we just wanted to make people aware of that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I see the sun setting behind you there. Oh, the light there.
Yeah, that's my kitchen light. Before I was out in the sun, and now it's dark.
All right, I'm going to now turn it over to Jen Allard, and Jen Stice may also add a little bit to this to do. Both of them have been working on one of the committees that we have, virtual committees that we have right now, behavioral health supports. So Jen Allard is going to talk a little bit about that.
Hi everyone, good evening.
Hi,
So
Jen.
I wanted to give an update on our behavioral and mental health / crisis committee that Jen and I have been sort of co-chairing through this time. And again, wanted to give just a little, we've talked about this group a few times in the past school committee meetings, but again, wanted to give a little shout out to those who help us and do, you know, a huge part of the work in that group: Lauren Sabella, Mary Juliana, Jillian Sullivan, Sharon Drew, Boykar, and Allison Wright. So in support of what we're looking to provide tonight at school committee in regards to some of the updates and some information about potential reopenings and plans for that, we thought it would be crucial to also talk about the work that this group has been doing to support that. So
And Jen, before you go on, I just wanted to add, Flory Johnson has also been a
thank you. I'm sorry
critical
about
member
that.
of that team.
Thank you, Jen. And please feel free to chime in if I'm missing anything. So what we've been doing in the recent to support in discussions we've been having and supporting the work around potential reopenings and transitions back in is we started off having a lot of thoughtful conversations about potentially what it could look like, what are some areas that group felt needed to potentially be supported, and kind of use our own internal expertise and their expertise in those areas to start coming up with needs for the transitions and for the returns. And I think it's crucial to mention as well that this group also kind of does not work in a silo. We've been taking this information back to our district leadership team as well. So there's been involvement and input from principals and directors and other building administrators and other leaders throughout the district. And we've tried to keep open up lines of communication because I think it's important to know that though this group is spearheading some of that work and you know our kind of our district professionals in that work, the impact is greater and it's district wide as well as building specific. So we're very open with our leadership team and the work that we've been doing there. So I think it's been a great relationship, and honestly an amazing group. And I know Jen would say this as well, an amazing group to be a part of. So we've started to talk about the supports that we would have in place upon any sort of returns or those wishing to re-enter buildings. And you'll hear a little later in the presentation about some of the things that we've done physically in the buildings, and in spaces in the buildings and offices in the buildings in order to make them more physically appropriate for distancing upon returns. As we know, there'll be a lot of that in question, but also I think what goes hand in hand with that is not only the physical piece and the physical well-being, but also the emotional part of that as well, and the mental health aspect of that as well, which is equally as important when we're working with our staff and eventually our students and our families on what a return looks like. So we have many ideas on what that could look like. Obviously, we're being flexible because we're waiting on some guidance from the state on when we're able to return, what it looks like when we return, what groups can return. But this group is really looking to support those who are returning directly with some emotional supports and essentially well-being type check-ins. Also, this group has continued its work with the crisis team development district-wide. So we are happy to say that that is essentially at this point somewhat completed for this specific crisis we're dealing with. We have gathered a great district group of what we call clinicians who will be able to respond in a crisis situation. And we're begun work with modeling what it looks like at the district level to take that to our buildings and to continue to build on some of the crisis teams that are already in place in the buildings and to really align those. So that work is also continuing. And again, this group has thought about every aspect of it from a staff perspective, from a student perspective, and a family perspective. So I think we really take a true holistic look at, and that's again to the credit of the amazing people that I named at the beginning of this and their expertise. It truly is an amazing group to be a part of. So Jen, feel free to add if there's anything I've missed, but just to give a brief update, that's some of the major work we've been contributing.
Yeah, Jen, you did a great job. I think you summarized it. We're really trying to make sure that we really think about how do we support everybody emotionally and physically during the return. And as Jen said, I just want to echo what an absolutely amazing group this is. Reading is very lucky to have them working on this, and we continue to be amazed at how
Thank you both.
Okay, now I'm going to move it over. Oh, before I move it over to Gail, I did want to say, and I apologize for not saying this at the beginning of the reports, that Chris Kelly is not able to attend this evening. Unfortunately, she had a death in the family, so our thoughts go out to her family during this very difficult time. I do now want to turn it over to Gail, and she's going to talk about all the great things that have been going on in the physical buildings that Jen had mentioned.
Great, thank you. And I did want to echo Thanks. I did want to take a quick second and echo what Dr. Stiles said. Maura, you have been amazing over the past year. I just wanted to say congratulations and best of luck to you. It's been a joy watching you at all of these meetings over the past year, and I hope you do keep in touch with us, and I wish you nothing but the best success in your college career.
Thank you so much. That's a lot.
So I wanted to take a quick moment. We have been working very closely with, as some of the updates we've given, with the facilities department. So Joe Huggins and his team, the maintenance workers, the custodians, the town, the operations command group to start to get the schools ready for reopening, which we do know will be a very phased approach. So one of the areas that I will say we were relatively ahead of the curve on is we have started to install plexi shields in all of the main offices throughout the schools. We started with central office, which is the picture you see here. And what we're attempting to do is in any of the higher traffic areas where we have a lot of public coming in to the main offices, we installed the plexi shields with service transaction windows. And this is really to try to promote the social distancing and limiting the face-to-face contact while still having the face-to-face contact, but putting as much protections in place. So Joe Huggins and his team have gone through all of the areas, and I think we have a few pictures of, this is the Rise preschool area. So we worked with Jen Stice and Denise Santoro and Kelly Bostwick to really look at the space. We're looking at all of the secretarial areas, the mail distribution areas, copier centers, to really try to still have them be open and welcoming, but put protections in as needed. We also worked with each principal for all of their areas as well, so they all had a chance to take a look at it. This is one of the elementary schools. I think this is Sparrows.
I think.
Trying to remember looking at it sideways. So each of the principals had a chance to review the plans that we had before we proceeded with it. So the goal is to have all of the main offices done within the next week or two, and then we will be taking another pass through the schools with all of, and I believe that is Killam. We also know we need to take a look at the areas such as the athletics office, potentially the guidance office, all of the cafeterias, to really take a look at how furniture is positioned, any of the counters, to start to incorporate some of the guidance that we're receiving from DESE as well as the state, to really try to get ahead of it before the schools start to reopen. So that is some of the projects that have been going on. And one of the other items that Jen Allard and Dr. Stice referenced was that we are also in the process of developing a re-entry process. And really how we've been looking at this is sort of the dipping our toe in the water. It's a slow transition back. The purpose is to come up with a way that, as thoughtful as possible, looks at our 52-week employees and coming up with a plan to allow them to start to re-enter the workspace. We're also looking at the best approach to allow teachers back into the buildings to pack up their classrooms, close things down for the summer. We have food services coming in, and we're also looking at the best ways to allow students to pick up belongings they either left in their desks or in their lockers. And we're also developing a place for students to drop off library books, textbooks, as well as the technology that we've lent out to all the students, because we do know that that's a good amount of materials that need to come back into the schools. We're going to go through sort of our version of what some of these various stages might look like. And one of the things we do want to caution is that the dates that are on here are very much contingent upon what the governor's stay-at-home orders are. We have not received any details about what May 18th, which is sort of the first phase, will look like. So we have tentative dates here, but we do want to let folks know that these are all very contingent upon what the governor eventually says. So we did start back, we did receive information about the custodians were allowed to come back starting the week of May 4th. So they are now back in the buildings 40 hours a week, which has been great because we're able to start some of the summer cleanings and summer projects. We're also now able to work with them on making sure they're also utilizing their vacation time before the end of the year. We're also having building principals come in on an as-needed basis if they need to pick up materials or do work that they can't do remotely. We are still doing all of our meetings virtually, though that will continue for the foreseeable future. The second step that we started this week is that we've started to have larger video meetings. We've met with the team chairs. We met with the team that Jen Allard and Jen Stice mentioned. We also met with all of the central office staff to really start to talk about what this transition might look like. We've had a lot of meetings with central office, a lot of meetings with facilities. The district leadership team, which is the principals and all of the various directors and administrators, have met multiple times. We're working right now with getting locker assignments because one of our plans is to have the custodians assist with cleaning out the lockers. So we're making sure we have a good list of what's where throughout the buildings, and all of that had been occurring this week. Our plan for next week, again, depending upon what guidance comes out from the state, is we're going to start to transition the various groups back into the building. And this is all going to be done with very limited contact within the areas. We're limiting this to 1 to 2 people. So even within central office, at the initial steps, we're only going to have 1 to 2 people in the office that all can be socially distanced from each other. We have worked with the Board of Health and the command group on our plans to make sure everybody is comfortable with it and that all the right precautions are being taken. We're also going to start to allow deliveries back at all of the buildings now that we will have principal and secretary coverage, because for the past 2 months, all mail and deliveries have gone to central office. The custodians over the next couple of weeks will start to empty out the lockers and finish bagging all of that information. We have our food services staff coming in next week to shut down and clean out the kitchens, and then we're hoping the rest of the protective shields will be in place by the end of next week or the following week. We have worked very closely to create transition plans. We have almost a sign-in schedule that we know who's coming into each school and each member of central office, so that we ensure we are limiting the number of people. We are moving ahead with some of the smaller, in terms of the number of folks working on them. There's still significant capital projects for us. The Birch Meadow phone system that was part of the capital plan we had put on hold. We are now moving forward with that. Next week, we do have the split systems going in, the head end rooms, the Coolidge boiler system is also being replaced. So our technology and facility staff have started to reactivate the consultants that are working on that. We will be supplying sanitizer, wipes. We're ensuring all of the high-touch surfaces will be cleaned on a daily basis or throughout the day, depending on the number of folks entering the building. But we are asking all staff who enter the building to ensure they're using face coverings, and they would be providing their own face coverings based upon the face covering rules that are in place. And all of this has been communicated through the principals to the staff. Going forward, our next steps that we're working with all of the principals on is we are setting up schedules for preschool, elementary, and secondary teachers to come in tentatively the week of May 25th to be able to pack up their classrooms. If we know teachers are moving, we're also giving them additional time to fully pack up their classrooms. We have very tight schedules where everyone will sign up. We are ensuring that all the guidelines are from the Board of Health. We also are working very closely with the school nurses to develop a checklist that each person will be asked to submit so that we can ensure we understand if there are any potential risks of any of the folks coming in. And if there are risks, the nurses would be reaching out to them to sort of reschedule times for them to come in the building. So we are being very cautious as we do this. So once all of the teachers have done what they need to do, we are scheduling time, most likely the beginning of June, for students to come in and pick up their material. And what we're planning on doing is having the information, all of their stuff bagged up for them so that we can just schedule times for them to come in and have main distribution areas where they can come in, grab what they need, and go. We're also going to have bins set up for any library books or other materials that were loaned out so that the material can come in, be dropped off, it can sit for an appropriate amount of time, and then we would have the specialists come in to collect and catalog what they need to. The nurses will be available to distribute any medication that had been left since the close of school. We're working with Chris Nelson on the extended day to make sure their information is packed up as well. We will be asking the students to follow the same safety precautions that we asked the teachers to do, and this will all be managed by the building principals. We're also being very conscientious that there is still teaching and learning going on during this time, so we are working very closely with each building to make sure that we're taking that into account and making sure it fits into each of the teachers' respective schedules throughout this process. And then towards the end, the elementary schools, we will be doing the same thing. We're trying to break it down by location to make sure we have the right custodial coverage and building coverage to go through it. So RISE will have a session for them with the elementary as well as with the high school, and the same protocols will be followed. And then once we have all of the students and teachers out of the schools, any of the secondary capital projects that would be going on, we would be able to start. So that might be larger projects that would have more individuals involved, that we want to limit those people coming into the buildings until we're sure we've cleaned everybody out of them. And then we're looking around the week of June 15th to have all of this completed, and then we would have the elementary buildings officially shut down for all of the summer cleaning, with the exception of Birch Meadow, which is dependent upon whether the ESY school would be brick and mortar or remote. If it is brick and mortar, we're intending to have it all contained within the Birch Meadow Elementary School. And then once, with the last day of school being June 19th, we will have the week of June 22nd for any loaned computers that the students need to use until the end of school would be returned at that point, as well as any technology for teachers that might be leaving the district. And we will be doing the reverse of what we're doing now. We will have that all happen under the bridge at RMHS, such that people can bag their items, put their names on it, and drop it off and have it be as touchless as possible. So the distribution of it has worked really well, so we're hoping this will be the reverse of that. I think that is all of our...
That's all of our reports.
Oh, thank you. Good job. Now it's committee reports. Tom, do you have a report?
Chuck, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the select board meeting last night, so I'm hopeful you can report on that. I believe we'll cover the content from the finance committee related stuff later in the meeting as well. So from a report perspective, I don't have anything. I do want to say, looking through this material and whatnot, listening to the presentations tonight, reading all the material we're getting, sometimes we forget to say thank you. So I am going to say thank you. Gail, Chris, who's not here, Heather in her stead, Kate, and everybody else. Maura, I think you've been thanked a lot, and I know you've got some personal thank yous going on behind the scenes as well. So, everything that everybody's doing, it's hard what we're going through right now, what everybody's going through. And I do want to acknowledge that as well. I mean, the teachers many of the teachers are going above and beyond. Principals are going above and beyond, doing what they need to do. And I think the community in many ways is seeing that and appreciating it. I do think though as well that we always have room for improvement. And as long as we have the right tone and the right intent with a lot of these conversations, we can have very positive conversations about improvement. And I would continue to hope that we do that both as a committee and as an administrative and teaching team. We've done a lot of great work so far, and I just want to appreciate that and just continue to strive for improvement as well. So I'll stop there.
Thanks. Aaron, did you have a report?
Just to say that members of the CPAC board continue to meet with Jen Sties and Allison Wright and Dr. Doherty, usually Chris Kelly, weekly. I find, again, I'm very impressed by the collaboration and the relationships that they're developing there. And the CPAC board wants to reiterate that they still want to hear from parents, whether it's joys or concerns. Please continue to reach out and share with them. And if you're not on the CPAC email list and you would like to be, please let them know.
Thank you. John Parks?
No report, Chuck.
Sean?
Nothing tonight, thanks.
And Carla?
No report, Chuck.
And I did not watch the Board of Selectmen meeting, so I apologize.
Chuck,
I don't have
you want to do the Madeline Lieberman thing right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll switch over to it. Hold on a second. We received an email which didn't make it into the public packet because it happened so late. Madeline Lieberman is looking to help a little bit, not through school resources, so this isn't a school-sponsored thing, but her email says this. It says, "Dear members of the school committee, would you mind reading the following during the public comment period? It'll also be at the beginning of the meeting if there's any questions. As all of us are aware, there's growing pressure on families due to social distancing during COVID-19. I'd like to share a resource for families struggling to entertain their kids and kids feeling isolated with the loss of school, outside childcare and activities. Reading Kids Connect pairs passionate, dedicated high school and college-age mentors in Reading with younger students ages 7 to 15 for virtual video sessions. Kids who feel isolated without their friends will have someone to talk to, and parents can focus on work or take a break. For mentors, this is a great volunteer opportunity and a chance to make a difference for Reading family. To find a mentor or volunteer, visit Reading Kids Connect on Facebook. Thank you, Madeline Lieberman." And I think that's a great thing that she's trying to offer there. I just want to make it clear that this is not a Reading Public Schools thing, but we appreciate her willingness to help.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Doherty, or is this Gail, the intermunicipal agreement?
I believe that is me, Chuck.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So we wanted to include it in the packet that went out is a red line version of the last intermunicipal agreement that we have. So just as a reminder, we have multiple agreements with Wakefield, and this one is for sharing our food services director. So as you've heard us give updates, especially over the past 2 months, Danielle Collins is our current food services director, and we do share her with Wakefield. This has been a great relationship for both communities because we're both able to tap into the resources, shared knowledge. We work very closely. with them on this. It's been a very strong partnership. So really, this is just an update to the agreement to extend it for another 3 years. The changes that you will see in there is that we do have a 2.5% increase in the fee structure, which is normal, and it's in line typically with sort of the COLA adjustments that we use, as well as some of the other costs that Reading assumes specific to this job. We have increased the number of days worked as part of the agreement, and that's just given the workload of running the 2 districts. The other thing we did add in there is a little bit of flexibility, because right now we are not sure exactly what the summer is going to look like. So we wanted the flexibility if either district decides to have a summer program, that district would bear the cost of those additional days for the food services director, which we feel would be fair. If we're both doing it, it would be a split cost, but if only one district does it, they would bear the cost of it. This has been prepared and reviewed between myself, Danielle, my counterpart in Wakefield. Dr. Doherty has reviewed it. Doug Lyons, who is the superintendent in Wakefield, has also reviewed it. It has been through, based upon the timing of everybody's meetings, Wakefield has reviewed it through their school committee and town council. If our school committee approves it, we will be working with the town manager to get it in front of our select board in the upcoming weeks. But we do strongly recommend that we maintain the agreement.
Thank you. Actually, can we have a motion first, please?
Motion to approve the partnership with Wakefield Public Schools.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Aaron.
Second by Aaron. Okay, now, does anybody have any questions for Gail? Sean?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Can you just walk me through a little bit how we think about this contract? I mean, if I'm not a lawyer, so let's start there. But it feels to me like Wakefield's responsibilities with respect to this shared position are entirely constrained to a prorated portion of the salary, and we bear all the responsibility for hiring, retaining, training, evaluating all of the risk associated with any employment relationship, right? What's the? It doesn't feel terribly balanced in that regard. So I'm just curious what the sort of history or and I know you probably weren't around for the history, but
I
how
was
we would
not
think
around.
about that.
So I was not around for the history, but I will say that originally this was a position that was a Reading position, and based upon my understanding is a few relationships we had with Wakefield, they were looking to partner. I think they had a gap at the time. So we expanded the role of, this person is actually a Reading Schools employee, so hence the hiring, the training and everything would be our responsibility, because if we did not have this agreement, she would become basically back to being our employee. So that's why the hiring, the reviews and all of that does fall solely on us, because she is our employee that we are sharing with the town of Wakefield. We do work very closely with them from a review standpoint. I will say that Danielle was hired this year. It was a very collaborative process. We had multiple members from Wakefield participate. So we had their business manager was involved. Their superintendent got copies of all of the resumes, and their food services personnel were also involved. So it is very collaborative, but she is an employee of ours. And what it does is I will say that it affords both districts to be able to have a very, very strong resource that neither district could afford on its own.
So, and this probably isn't a fair question for you because you also are not a lawyer, but
I play one on TV anyway. Occasionally.
There you go. Yeah. I guess the question that I have is, do you have a sense for how it works? I mean, you know, for the portion of her time that she is you know, working on behalf of Wakefield, is she a Wakefield employee from a you know, an employment you know, an employment liability perspective, I guess. You know, and again, I'm not, you know, I'm not anticipating any negative scenarios here, but just it's where the balance comes out.
Yeah, my understanding would be if there were issues that came up in their food services arena, it would fall on Wakefield. If she were to do something to harm a Wakefield employee, it would fall on Wakefield.
Sean, if I can just add, since I was here when the original document was put together, we had all of this reviewed and vetted at the time by town council. And so this, you know, this is a pretty solid ironclad agreement.
If she was injured, Sean, or anything, that would fall under us, though.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. That's kind of the thing that I'm getting at, right?
I thought that's what you were asking. Yeah, that's our responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, they're responsible for roughly half the cost. We each get roughly half the benefit, but we bear all of, you know, virtually all of the risk that comes with any employment relationship. So that's my, you know, I'm not prepared to derail this tonight. I just wanted to sort of express those concerns.
Okay, is that good then? You good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Carla?
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Gail. I had a couple quick questions. One was kind of aligned with what Sean had asked in terms of like retirement. How does we pay?
That would be on Reading, because we pay 100% of her salary. She would be part of our benefits.
So we would be responsible for repaying her retirement benefits.
Correct.
In addition, the other costs are about a 50-50 split. And then do we have this relationship with any other district for any other position?
For the other position, which is a purely on the town side, the tax assessor is a shared Wakefield Reading relationship. And if my memory serves, that is actually a Wakefield employee it's the flip of the arrangement.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tom?
Thank you. Gail, just a clarification here on the 50%. Is that 50% of total compensation or 50% of salary? And where total compensation being benefits?
It's total compensation because we would incur benefits, training, professional memberships, travel, phone reimbursement for being in 2 districts. So it is not just salary. It's meant to cover all of it.
And where I was going with that as well is the contract has a very specific dollar number in each of those years. And as you said, it's a 2.5% increase from the previous year. Is there a reason why we didn't just put something like 50% of total compensation or something like that instead of putting a dollar number into it?
That might be a little tricky from a budgeting standpoint on both sides, depending whether or not benefits and everything, how they factor into it. So this was more so from a budgeting because all of this comes out of revolving accounts in both districts. So to be able to budget fact certain is how we did that.
Is that good, Tom?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a vote. Tom?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Carla?
Aye.
Chuck? Aye. Thank you, Gail.
Great, thank you. I do appreciate it.
You're still up.
Ugh. I have to shift my seat.
Right? Yeah, I think I'm starting this, right? This one?
Yeah.
Sure. Either or.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead. If you want, go ahead.
Sure. What we wanted to do, now that I like shifted around, because I feel like I've been sitting in the same chair for about 15 hours now.
Can I just, do we need to take down that?
Oh, I think it should be the next slide, sorry. There you go.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to present, and these are the tables that were included in the memo that was in the packet. So as folks are aware, we did have a finance committee meeting on Tuesday night. We have been working very closely with the town manager, the town accountant, Dr. Doherty, myself. We worked very closely with the central office leadership team. So Chris Kelly, Jen Stiles, Jen Allard, myself, and John. We also have shared all of this with the building principals and various administrators. So as Bob laid out at Finance Committee, based upon the current revenue projections and other items that have come out, we have come up with a proposed budget that was presented to Finance Committee on Thursday night, and we did open it up for discussion. But what we wanted to do was also have a similar discussion here tonight with school committee to be able to go into it a little bit more detail if folks wanted to have a more open discussion as part of school committee on it. So what we have done is come up with proposed changes based upon the revised guidance that was provided and working closely with the town. And as you can see, we have done a split between proposing decreases to wages as well as to other expenses. And as we had talked about earlier during this current COVID crisis, is that we do anticipate going forward that we will need to reassess the majority of our revolving accounts and the associated offsets. Not reflected on here because it is not technically part of the school committee budget is we have worked very closely with the town manager, and there are additional offset changes that he is also proposing that typically we have given $100,000 out of our revolving accounts is a transfer to the town, which is meant to cover a lot of the utilities associated with running our extended day and use of school property accounts. So we've worked closely with the town manager, and we have proposed a decrease in those for next year as well, knowing that those programs may not be running in the same capacity as they currently are. But for the school budget itself, we are proposing reductions for full day K, RISE, as well as the middle school extracurricular accounts. So this first level chart just shows the high level overview. The next chart that we have breaks it down even further by cost center by each of the various categories. So I can walk through high level what each of the items are, but as which we'll get to as well, we do want to let folks know this is all very high level. We've spent a lot of time trying to make difficult decisions looking forward to next year, knowing we don't have a full picture of what next year looks like. We have not received guidance as to what the schools will look like, whether it will be brick and mortar, whether it will be remote, whether it will be some combination of the two. We do not have full guidance on if it is brick and mortar, what that might look like, what the social distancing requirements might look like, what transportation might look like, what cleaning requirements look like inside and outside the school. So there are still a lot of unknowns. So this is based upon sort of what we have to know right now. We have been participating in a lot of calls with other school districts, with business managers, superintendents, finance committees. Everyone's in the same boat, just not necessarily knowing what everything is going to look like. So the approach we took is to really look at items we could reduce. We were very strategic about it. We did our best not to dismantle any programs that we have spent a long time building, especially with the successful override. So we wanted to look at items that we could cut, but then if funding became available, we could add back easier later in the year. We also want to reassure the committee that, as we always have done, the district will continue to monitor all of its expenses. We've actually already started to do that. We are making sure we're taking advantage of all the funding sources we have available. We're looking at all of our grants to see if there are any grants that can be extended into future years. We're looking to be able to utilize those in the most effective way. We did just find out about a grant at the end of last week that is part of the CARES Act funding. It's about a $98,000 grant. We do have to do equitable services, so not all of that funding will be ours, but it is funding that's available through 2022. So we're also going to be very strategic about utilizing that. We're working very closely with Jen Allard and all of the hiring managers to really assess our hiring practices and really looking at the incoming and outgoing salaries. And then, as we just talked about, there are a lot of many unknowns out there. So one of the items that we are recommending is we are recommending to reduce the COLA assumption that we had utilized in the budget for all of the non-represented employees. This still would leave money in there for COLA adjustments for next year. That's about a $53,000 savings. And just as a quick reminder, that would be for all of the central office folks, all of the principals, assistant principals, team chairs, and district directors throughout. So the district. We do have one more year left on all of our union contracts, and as of now, we are still honoring all of the salary increases as reflected in those. Another area we are recommending is to reduce the amount we had budgeted for sick leave buyback for teacher retirements. That is unknown what it might be for next year. Teachers do not have to let us know until June 30th this year if they plan on retiring at the end of next year. What we did is take a look back at historical rates. Again, it's not a known yet, but we do feel that it would be reasonable to reduce it, and then looking at what our incoming salaries to outgoing salaries, if there were additional retirements, we could look to use some of that savings. We do have 2 FTE reductions that have been proposed. We do want to make sure folks know that those are currently empty positions. They are not currently filled, so we would not be letting anybody go that is currently employed. The first one is the Payroll HR Assistant that was added to the budget this year. That is a motorcycle in my background. Apologies for that, the nice weather. We had added that to the budget this year. We have not been able to fill it yet, and we do feel if this is something that could be added back later in next year, it's an easier position to add back and fill at any point during the year. The other one is an elementary teacher based upon the number of required classrooms for next year. The third item is we did have some unassigned paraeducator hours when we looked at all the movements of all the students. We do realize this is another area of risk because we do not know the level of services completely for next year based upon what has happened. But when looking at it based upon what we know today, we did have about $10,000 of extra hours that we could cut. And again, it's a reduction of hours and not a cut in an actual position. The other items that we looked at are expenses throughout a lot of the other discretionary areas. We're looking at district-wide curriculum. We are currently now still working very hard. I know Heather Leonard is working with us, with Chris Kelly, to look at a lot of the items, and we still have committees going on, so we're very close to making decisions on certain items that we're looking to acquire this year so we can get them in hand and start to look at the materials now. Professional development, we're hoping to utilize our grants a little bit differently next year as we're looking to see how much we can carry over from year to year. We did work very closely with Dr. Stiles in special education to ensure she still did have enough left to cover what she needed to. Technology replenishment, we will be looking to the CARES Act grant to help us fund some technology initiatives for next year. We looked at administration, sorry, and did some minor cuts in memberships, development type stuff. We worked with the building-based budgets. One item we do realize from this year is a lot of the material we had purchased because of the school closures has not been utilized yet, so we don't have to replenish it for next year. School facilities is really focused around radio replacements. We have not touched custodial staff, chemical supplies, or cleaning. And then the district-wide was really removing some of the added expenses we were able to layer on this year that had not historically been there. So again, we're not cutting anything they had already counted on in prior years. For the changes in the offsets, as we had discussed, we do know that next year our incoming kindergarten class is smaller than we had originally anticipated. We also know that there are several students being recommended for full day kindergarten through the IEP process that would not be paying for the tuition. We have seen a handful of families change from full day to half day, and I would also anticipate we might see more applications for free and reduced based upon what's currently happening. The same situation is occurring within the RISE program. So based on that, we are recommending to decrease the offsets. We also don't know if the programs are not fully brick and mortar. We also do anticipate that that would impact the tuition-based programs. Extracurricular is based towards the two middle school programs to ensure that we can keep the same type of programming and shows that they've had historically based upon what happened in the current year that they weren't able to build up and maintain the revolving accounts the way we had anticipated. As we mentioned, we do anticipate that there could also be increased costs that we just do not necessarily know yet. We know that there may be a need for increased substitute teachers depending on what happens if there are family-related issues, any continued COVID-19 illnesses into next year. The revolving accounts across the board will need to be monitored. Some of the ones we might not think about are use of school properties. We do not know what the rental world will look like next year. We put food services on there because that one is really dependent upon the number of meals that we're serving. We're fortunate this year that we were able to sustain it even though we did have the closure. Extended day, as we mentioned earlier, at an earlier meeting, we did end up furloughing their staff because without the revenue coming in, we did not have a way to sustain that staff. Athletics and extracurricular, will be dependent upon what each of those seasons looks like. We do not know yet what summer programming will look like as far as our extended school year, recreation, and summer camp rentals. The summer tends to be pretty big for our recreation and summer rentals, so we may not have a lot of that coming in, and we're not sure if they do happen, what additional costs would be incurred running the programs. And then we are working, poor Dr. Stice, I think cries every time I call her with this, is we're trying to figure out how to model 3 different ESY programs and the costs incurred with each one of them, from virtual to a hybrid to completely brick and mortar. And there are complexities involved with all of them, especially if social distancing in the schools and transportation has to be figured out. A couple of the other items that we're looking at, additional PPE costs. You've heard the town manager talk a lot about what the facilities department is doing this year to ensure that we're getting as much in stock as we can. We still don't know how much of it may be covered through claims with the government. We also know that we will have to think about PPE differently for the nursing staff, so we're working very closely with Mary on that. The disinfecting and cleaning, we know the model will change, where we're focusing the attention of the custodial staff throughout the day and their cleaning schedules, as well as the increased costs of the various cleaning chemicals and equipment that we would be using. We do anticipate additional health service costs, whether it's additional substitute nurses to help out, regular substitute teachers, paraeducators. We're also keeping a close look on what our regular day and special education transportation might look like if we have to add additional busing for mandated as well as special ed. We do not yet know what athletics and extracurricular will look like depending upon social distancing rules, technology needs with different remote learning platforms, different subscriptions and licenses we may need for the curriculum to promote and support such platforms, right down to what lunch may look like, whether or not you can still have their traditional cafeteria lunch, or will lunches be in the classroom, and what does that look like, because that's part of the teacher's planning time during the day. So how do we backfill that coverage? We do know there may be additional compensatory services, tutoring needs. As Jen Stice and Jen Allard mentioned, we're looking at additional counseling needs. We do think, there will be some hesitation and concerns, and also just what does it look like for students that have been out of school this amount of time to come back in September, and then, what if we have to do staggered start times and changing bell schedules? So, this list could go on for pages with how many items are just not known with certainty right now, but we are monitoring them as best we can, and we'll keep the committee updated as we learn more. Hopefully that's the last slide.
So I can just start, and I think one of the, the common themes, and I heard it loud and clear tonight, and we're also hearing it from the state level, is the word unknown, and that's why I kind of still feel like I did the other night with the FinCom, is that I think we need to take a deep breath and not move so quickly to make these cuts, and maybe we'll have a better idea as we get towards the fall, and which is why I think I still think, and I have the utmost respect for everyone that put did all the work from the background, from the town side, from the school side. But I really feel like, you know, we're rushing into making these cuts before we really know everything. And I don't think it would hurt us to use the free cash. And you know, I know, and I mentioned I had a little conversation with Dr. Doherty about this, and you know, we use free cash that goes into the base, and you know, that gets us to the cliff closer. I would even propose that, you know, maybe ask the FinCom to use the free cash, but if it makes everyone more comfortable, don't include that in our base for the following budget. So it would be I guess, a one-time use of free cash to balance these proposed cuts, something along those lines. So that's kind of where my head is, and it's not a curveball. That's what I said the other night too. That's how I feel. You know, it's obviously up to the FinCom at this point, but again, and it's no disrespect, I appreciate everything and all the hard work that went into this. So I'll end it there. Carla, do you have something? I'm sorry, Sean had his hand raised. Yes.
So close, Chuck. So close. So I had a related question. You know, my sense from the FinCom meeting the other night was that at least some members of FinCom were interested in potentially, you know, doing something to help not have to make some of these cuts to the operating budget in particular. Some of the cuts you guys have identified, frankly, are not terribly painful from my perspective, right? I mean, obviously, you know, a kindergarten teacher we're not going to need because the class is smaller, not terribly painful. And I know that position was never hired, so it's not, you know, even calling it a cut is probably the wrong framing, but at least from a budget perspective. The building budgets, I think the point you made about, you know, we're not spending some of that this year, and so there's some materials that we can carry over into next year, things like that. So some of those fundamentally, you know, don't feel terribly painful. I'm curious, you know, from your perspective, John and Gail, if we were to, you know, if the FinCom were to say, we're not comfortable, you know, taking a whack at the operating budgets in this way, and we wanted to, you know, find another 100,000 or something in the school budget that we would fund, what would you prioritize to put back?
This is like the
I was going to say, you know, I will say, I'll go on record, and it's probably the wrong thing to say because it is my own department, partly my own department. I do feel that the HR payroll position would be probably one of my top items, as we had indicated before. This used to be a shared position that we had with the town, so when that position vacated, we came up with this new model, so we don't have those resources. So this is almost sort of a double hit, if you will, because we used to have hours available to us that we don't have anymore. And I think from my standpoint, from a risk standpoint, having had our payroll person go out on leave this year and not having a backfill for that, if you were to ask me which one I would put back first, it would be this one, given where we want the HR position and the hiring and the diversity and the training, and also from our standpoint, the cross training, that we don't have anyone else currently that can step in and do any of these roles. So from a segregation of duties, a risk mitigation, a cross training, I would say that would be my top pick for, and it's not just because it's within sort of my own department. I just look at everything we're moving around and what we gave up when the hours went away.
So, Sean, if I can piggyback on what Gail said. So when we were putting these, well, I actually want to back up a second just to add something that I wanted to say earlier, and I forgot to say that, and Gail and I were both on a conference call today, with BASBO and MASS officials, so both of our professional associations. And the purpose of the conversation was to outline what we should be doing in FY20, what we should do in FY21, and then looking ahead to FY22. And I think the thing that we both walked away from is that we are turning over every stone we need to turn right now. And we feel really good that the direction that we in the town have taken moving forward and preparing ourselves the best we can with the unknowns moving forward. So I want to say that up front, that there wasn't one thing they mentioned that we should be doing that we aren't doing. Given the fact that we set this up strategically so that we could take a look at things that we could either do some things in FY20 or we could wait and hopefully revenues would become more available later in FY21, I would agree with Gail that the HR payroll administrator would be the first piece back. I know Mr. Wise asked the question the other night, and I want to answer it because he's probably going to ask it. So I have had some conversations with Mrs. Hendricks about perhaps putting an additional teacher at Barrett Meadow, which would be grade 2, in conversation with the fact that we did get the additional modular through the bid process. Because of the complexities of and the needs of the programs that she has with Compass and Connections in that building, they actually need an additional space for related services in a sensory room. And so what she was planning on using, and in talking to Dr. Stice, she confirmed that today, having that additional space for all of the related services, because Birch Meadow does have a significant amount of those services, that would be better served for students than adding an additional classroom for grade 2. Currently, the enrollment for grade 2 is 66, which is 22 in a classroom, which is consistent with your guidelines and also with some other classes in the district that are in the K-2 range. So I would say the HR administrator.
Yeah, and I think, Sean, if I were to try to balance the 100 you threw out, I would say probably the second piece I would look like would be the curriculum PD side, which I sort of sometimes look together, because when we get curriculum, we try to look at the technology and PD piece along with it. So I would say that would probably be the other area I would look to as funding became available, to make sure we're constantly rebuilding that amount of money, because the grants won't necessarily backfill that piece where it can for PD, and we have the one-time grant that can help us look at various technology platforms for remote learning. Since you gave me 100, I was going to spend it.
I know Tom has a question, but before you ask Tom, I just wanted to ask Dr. Doherty, just to clarify, you just said when you met with or had a conference call with MASBO and MASS, they said we were doing everything right. Were you referring to budget decisions or just?
Yes.
What do they know about Reading's budget? Why would they make a adjustment like that?
No, not Reading's budget decisions, but they are making recommendations on how to prepare us for FY21, the things that you should be doing now, and then the things looking forward to FY22. So the things, I'm not talking about the decisions the FinCom is making or you're making. I'm talking about the things we're doing internally to prepare ourselves down the road.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
My turn. Thank you. I view that tonight's conversation, I guess first point of information would be, are we bound to 9:55 from a 4-hour limit perspective, or do we have another upper time? Dr. Doherty, do you know?
I do not know the answer to that question.
I'm
not sure if the clock stopped when we were gone for 2 hours.
I thought we had the 2 links, but
And one was still streaming live to RCTV with the channel thing, so that's why I'm asking the question. If we're up against it from 9:55, it'd be good to know from rounding out the conversation and any motions to move other things. So if we could find out, that'd be good to know. The clock did not stop, according to Jeff.
I'll find.
Current timer says 3:59:40. Oh, we're almost out of seconds. Okay, so anyway, if we run out of time, we can renew it the next time. But hopefully we can still continue, and we'll see if we express teams to the end. I think if we can continue the conversation, I think the biggest thing coming out of this that I get out of the Finance Committee meeting is they want input from us about whether or not to proceed with the cuts, really. I heard, many of the members from Finance Committee were questioning whether we should actually, use or project to use, the free cash amount more, or not, right? I also agree with Chuck. I'm making no disparaging marks about anything with regards to all the work done. All the work done has been phenomenal, and I think all the forethought in many places has been phenomenal as well. But I'd like to come out of this meeting tonight from a school committee perspective with an understanding of what our perspective is. Should we, for lack of a better way to say, propose these cuts as they've been proposed and been asked to be proposed by the town manager to the superintendent and to Ms. Dowd, etc. Or should we say, let's hold the line? As you look at all the, for lack of a better say, unfunded things that we expect to happen next year, while the budget cuts that have been proposed are perfectly reasonable, that money could easily be moved to take care of all the additional cleaning, to take care of all the additional stuff where, additional, I can't even remember the list that they had was just so long. And so I'm wondering from a school committee perspective, in terms of a consensus conversation, do we even want, what is our position? Do we want to take a position on this going into Monday night's Finance Committee meeting?
May I interrupt for 1 second? 10 o'clock, Tom.
Yeah, he just sent us a meeting chat.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's not good.
Is it just the recording that will stop? Is that a problem for us?
I think it's the live version stops at 10. It's still being recorded, I believe.
Which does make it a problem from an OML perspective, right?
Yeah. So,
We also
let's
have
continue. I'm sorry, Aaron, did you have a question? I'm getting confused with all the.
I think Sean had his hand up again before I raised my hand.
Oh, I thought he was telling us what the timer said. All right, Sean.
No, there was another one earlier before the timer discussion. Thank you, Aaron. Another question I had on that list was increased demand for substitutes. My understanding is that in the past we've had trouble at times securing particularly long-term substitutes. That feels like that could be exacerbated in a world where teachers and districts have not only their contractual time off, but the time off that's available to them through some of the recent legislation. So is there anything that we can be doing now? I'm just trying to think totally outside of the box here to be, substitutes on retainers or something, anything we could be doing now to put ourselves in a better position for the fall in particular, if we find that we're in need of substitutes and they are in higher demand than usual.
I think that gets a little tricky because that falls into the paying for services not yet rendered.
Yeah.
So that's a slight problem. The only other concept which I know some districts have utilized but have not always had the greatest success is to go to a temp agency, but again, they're also dependent upon the pool of people available, and you don't always necessarily have as much control over who is getting sent, and there would be a premium involved with such a service because it's the cost of the taxes and benefits and overhead and charges that they do. So we're not unique to that, unfortunately, and I do think next year will be an interesting challenge on both sides of the equation. There may be a greater pool of people available based upon what's happening, because typically in a down economy with higher unemployment, you have a much bigger pool, but there is also the flip side of how many of them are going to want to be substitute teachers based upon what would be involved with it. So it's a tough one, because typically we do better with that pool of individuals with higher unemployment.
You good, Sean? That
Yes, thank you. Sorry if you all have seen me swatting at a mosquito flying around my office here.
Aaron?
It look like I've lost my marbles.
I thought you were clapping for me.
Yeah.
No, it was an
Aaron?
excellent response, but I was trying to kill a mosquito.
Just connecting to what Tom was asking of us as a committee. I agree with Sean that on papers necessarily look too painful, and I know you've reiterated over and over that, you know, we could try to fill them next year if finances changed, but I can't help but look at them in the vein of coronavirus and the high likelihood that things are going to look very different in the fall, maybe even the entire school year. You know, I look at the payroll and HR, and I imagine it's going to be a particularly tricky time with staffing, with people taking leave, with people exercising their rights and new laws, and that's HR. You know, cutting curriculum we're still entering is good, and what we have now is probably not even what we're going to have in the fall. At least I hope it would be even like more developed in the fall. You know, professional development, I imagine remote learning is also going to require different types of professional development, and same for technology. Technology is everything right now with remote learning. So I also sort of look at them in the vein of where we're at, and whether we want to take money away from any of these places.
okay. So just before we continue this discussion, we're going to be up against it at 10 o'clock. So I'd like to continue this discussion, and if we run out of time on this, we can probably meet earlier on Monday, or post to meet at, say, 6 o'clock on Monday before the Finance Committee meeting. But we'd have to put the social media discussion to a different meeting. Is everyone agree with that approach right now, or not?
Yeah, do you want to pause now and just do an official motion to postpone the social media, then remove?
Yeah, you want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll just make that motion. So, motion to postpone the social media discussion, including policies BHE and BHEA, until the next school committee meeting. Next full school committee meeting on May 28th.
Seconded by
Second.
Sean. Tom?
Aye.
Carla?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Chuck? Aye. Okay. Thank you. So, John Parks, you had a question or a comment on the...
More of a comment, Chuck. As far as the expenses coming up, we've got a lot of unknowns that we're going to probably have to bring back to town meeting possibly in November. What we're looking at now, we've heard from 3 members at least that why not at least try to bring this budget forward to where it's at? If we can hire this position and get it into the budget where it's already approved, we should move it forward as far as the HR/payroll position. I'm worried about the software budget. I know we have the CARES Act funds and everything else, but I think the software and tech budget is going to take a hit, knowing, virtual education and technology. I think we're going to hit some high costs on that. We've got some funds that are going to be available, but taking funds away from next year's budget's not making sense to me.
Okay, thank you.
Chuck, do you want to entertain a motion on this topic, or do you think that our conversation is clear enough?
Yeah, I think if we want to have a motion, it sends a definitive message as opposed to just a summary of the conversation. So yeah, I'd entertain a motion.
So I might need somebody to help me wordsmith this, so please jump in if necessary, anybody. But I'll make the motion as this. Motion to petition the Finance Committee to move the budget that was voted in January 2020 forward to town meeting as is, without any reductions as was previously discussed.
I would second that.
So I think we're still going to have a problem from an offset perspective, independent of some of the salary and expense adjustments. So I'm not sure that exactly works.
Okay, so I will take an amendment to the motion if you want to provide one.
So actually,
Sure.
Before you do, Gail, can you just weigh in on that, what Sean's saying?
Thank you,
Do you
Sean.
mind?
No, so as part of the cuts that we made were $160,000 of changes to the offset. So if the budget goes forward as presented, all the offsets would stay the same, and then the cuts would have to happen sort of next year after the budget is approved. So if the offsets need to be adjusted for next year for the 160, we would need to find 160,000 of expenses to cut to support that.
Okay.
So my suggestion to how we would petition, I think was the word you used, Tom, the Finance Committee, would be to ask them to restore funding in the budget that they send to town meeting for some number of these line items. I don't know which one specifically we would want to include in that, but to restore the funding for some of these line items.
Yeah, I feel like an edit on town meeting floor are very hard to do. So, yep. Sorry, Chuck.
So I guess I understand what you're saying, Sean. And I just go back to what I said. I mean, there's just so many unknowns, and with so many unknowns, how do we then ask someone to prioritize what they wouldn't cut when you know what I mean? I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm rambling, but
I mean, I think we just did, and Gail and John both prioritized the same thing. I mean, so it could be as simple as, we're asking Finance Committee to pass a budget to town meeting that restores funding. Oh, are we going away? That restores funding for the HR and payroll assistant position to the budget proposed or to the budget reviewed on Tuesday, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think on the wording, but if they do that, then the budget that was prepared or presented on Tuesday is not the one that goes to town meeting. It's one that has that revision restoring funding for the HR and payroll position.
Just a point of clarification, Chuck, if you don't. Oh. Sorry, John. I was going to say a point of clarification in terms of our budget and process and line item adjustments that are possible. Can we at a later point in time adjust the offsets within one of our own meetings as necessary if we find things adjusted, right? We don't need to do it now in my mind. I think we have line item adjustments that we go through on a quarterly basis anyway when necessary. And so maybe we can take that approach and not have to make any choices now, but suggest that we know we're going to have a lot of expenses.
Yeah, I think Gail just said that we would just need to be mindful of that. The offset thing could come back to, that we're going to have to deal with it, not now, but maybe in the fall. Isn't that what?
Yeah, and I think one of the items, just as a point of reference for folks, is we typically start the year with almost a spending freeze to begin with. We do have certain holdbacks that we put in day one, so we do have that ability to, other than pure salaries, other discretionary expenses, that discussion could happen that some of those funds do not get released until the picture becomes clearer.
Yeah.
If that helps.
So given that future flexibility, I renew my initial motion and allow us to go with the budget that we had proposed in January. I think it was January 27th was the date we voted. And then we have the flexibility going forward, and we have the money that we can reallocate where we know we're going to. We all know we're going to have to spend more money next year for different things because of this. So that's my view.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second, John Parks.
And so any other discussion? Dr. Doherty, was that you? Did you say something? No?
I didn't say a word.
All right.
So, sorry, can I
Sure.
I just want to, one last question. Tom, so is it your understanding then that what we would effectively be asking the FinCom to do, given the revenue projections, which have been adjusted now, would be to use an additional $270,000 in free cash to balance the budget? That's effectively what we would be asking FinCom to do.
Essentially, yes. I mean, given the revenue projections, and we don't know necessarily where the revenue is going to come in, but yes, to balance the budget. Yes, that's my suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of along the lines of what we talked about on Tuesday night to kick in another $270,000 in free cash. And again, that's based on revenue projections that admittedly were conservative according to the meeting, or what was said at the meeting. So
yeah, I just want to caution. I mean, what we would essentially be asking town meeting to do is then to approve a budget that funds positions that we know we are not going to hire. For instance, the kindergarten position and the para hours that are no longer necessary in the budget. So, that could be okay, right? I mean, there's always a difference between what we know in May and what we know in January when we pass the school committee budget, but in this particular case, that feels a little bit unusual for me, but that's fine.
I'm nervous about how up against the clock we are. Can we wrap up and just agree to meet Monday night? We're just gonna get cut off in the middle of something if we don't figure out.
Oh yeah, I wasn't looking at how much time do we have left?
I have
4 minutes.
9:58.
I have a minute and 30 seconds, give or take, John. I mean, check.
John, is Linda still here? Can we get posted for Monday night at 6?
Don't know. I posted it for 7 when the FinCom meets. Town hall's closed tomorrow. I can send it and see what happens.
Yeah, usually we can. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've had, you know, I'm assuming we can. If we can't, I think there's enough dialogue here that the FinCom has a good idea where we stand, at least. For a good part of it, you know.
Should we adjourn before we run out of time?
Yes.
Do we need the motion on the floor needs to be tabled then? Or how do we do that?
Would have to be tabled.
Or you can withdraw the motion.
For ease of operation, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay. So let's, who's going to give the motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'm wise.
Sean?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Carla?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Chuck? Aye. Thank you, everybody. I apologize
Thank you.
that we didn't get to everything.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
Good night.